there were a few questions related to, speaking of conversations that count.
Okay, good. Let's come back to that.
Yes.
Good.
How do you have conversations at work, particularly if you're a manager of a team in a company that prides itself in diversity? Or how can you witness to your boss or other supervisors in the workplace? How do you recommend?
Okay, thanks for that question. I'll probably give 2 or 3 pieces of advice to who's ever asking that question. The first would be, guess what? Questions. Ask people questions about what they think and feel and believe about stuff. And then in the context of conversation, is that my alarm? It's a normal, natural thing for them to ask you back. And then if you listen to them, it's quite polite for them to listen to you. So honestly, having conversations, I think, begins with proactively thinking about asking people about themselves. Ask people questions that enable them to open up about what they think and feel, why they think and feel those things, what the basis for their moral instincts about the Las Vegas shooting or whatever the latest thing on the news is, and then see whether they ask you to offer your thoughts and feelings, and you can begin to perhaps bring in a Bible reading that you've read, that sort of way. Another thing I think you can do is to what my husband Frog calls fly fishing, where you sort of do that and it skims over the surface and you just see if it gets a bite. So, you could say something like, what did you do last weekend? And they'll say, we went clubbing in Manhattan. And they'll say, what did you do? You say, I went to a women's theology conference. They're like, what? And you say, well, there was this strange British woman from Oxford talking, and it was hosted. Have you ever heard of C.S. Lewis? Those Narnia stories, the nice lion and the wardrobe and everything. Yeah, it's kind of that's inspired by him, but we were talking about faith and life and talking a bit about the Bible and whether it's been oppressive to women, and it was really interesting. And see then whether that's the fly fishing, who's going to bite, and see if there's then a conversation on it. Another thing that I think, going back to the first talk, is asking questions, but is that culture of invitation. Are you a person who invites people for drinks, or who invites people for dinner, or who invites people to go and see a play or a concert or a sports match, I don't know, whatever you're into, and that you build and nurture relationships with people by sharing those kinds of experiences together? Be proactive about doing that, because often it's in those contexts, or go and see a movie and then talk about it afterwards. If you do that, then it's also a natural thing to say, if you've already been to a film, a play, drinks and a dinner, to say, in my church we're having this women's evening, and they've got this woman from Oxford or whoever it is coming to give a talk on blah, 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 and there's dinner, it'll be really fun, will you come with me? It's easy to do, so to invite. And then the last one would be to develop an imagination of what would it look like to have an apologetic witness in my workplace. Now, I work alongside people in our region who are trying to do that. And so I won't mention the places, but imagine the top banks in the world that you can imagine. And our team have been going in there for the last 4 weeks in 2 different places, just giving a talk at lunchtime, free lunch, book a conference room, 2 Christians organise it, and just invite everyone to come and hear a talk about integrity, or a talk on should we trust the Bible today, or a talk on could God be loving if there's a suffering world. And get someone you trust that is a good speaker who can definitely do it in that context. or to just develop a creative imagination. I was doing that in this city on Thursday in someone's workplace. So exciting to be able to do that, and it doesn't take many of you. I've spoken in all sorts of different companies, law firms, banks, departments in government, exactly the same thing. Just have a lunch and a speaker and, a really friendly invitation and questions at the end. Imagine, what could that be like where you are, where God has placed you? And then just a couple of encouragements from us. As you know, here, very thankful to being in such close relationship with the C.S. Lewis Institute, but also to say that as RZIM we have loads of free resources. You can check out our website, rzim.org, or the regional one that I'm part of is Europe, Middle East and Africa. There's the Reboot resources that are youth. There's lots of apologetics material online. And we also have, for those who feel a deeper calling into apologetics, something called the RZIM Academy, which is a sort of online course, and it's moderated and you're in community. I teach a bit on that. It's a really good way in the workplace or wherever you are. You can't sort of go and study in Oxford, or maybe you can't go to Biola or whatever, but you could do something, and it's a resource that we've made to sort of meet that need for and that hunger for apologetics in the world. Do pray for us. Can I just finish by asking you to do that? Our teams all around the world are doing this, sometimes in really hostile contexts. We have a team in the Middle East, all Arabs. They've come to the OCCA and they're back in their context, reaching out in that sort of way. Similarly, in Africa, we have a vision to catalyse university evangelism on the African continent by 2025, that we would get a mission week, apologetic evangelism, reaching Africa's top talent and the future leadership of that continent whilst they're studying at university. And we've got an amazing team of Africans doing that. And part of my job is to lead that. I'd really appreciate your prayers for me. If you ever remember it, put me on your list for the gospel to go forth. And just thank you for being such amazing companions on this journey.